the power of fear. When we become fearful, we must be on guard against the temptation to regress to attitudes and actions that are self-focused. Here's Gene to explain.
Here we begin to see self-destructive behavior in David because of the power of fear in his life. And in some respects, we can identify a little bit, not that we've been there, but Saul's out to kill him. And he's the king. And he even wants to kill his own son. And David knows that. And so David succumbs to the power of fear, and it leads him to do some very irrational things. Look at 1 Samuel 21. Almost an unbelievable passage. David fled that day from Saul's presence and went to King Achish of Gath, a pagan king. But Achish's servants said to him, "Isn't this David the king of the land?" They had heard about him, obviously. They knew what had happened to the giant. I mean, that spread. That's not a big area. And the word spread. Don't they sing about him during their dances? Saul has killed his thousands, but David his tens of thousands. And David took this to heart. And notice, he became very afraid. This heart after God now becomes incredibly fearful. He became afraid of King Achish of Gath, so he pretended to be insane in their presence. This is just incredible. But it happened. He acted like a madman around them, scribbling on the doors of the gate and letting saliva run down his beard. I mean, that is fear. That's forgetting all about what happened with Goliath. I mean, this is real. Look, you can see the man is crazy, Achish said to his servants. This next statement is rather humorous. Why did you bring him to me? Do I have such a shortage of crazy people that you brought this one to act crazy around me? Is this one going to come into my house? In other words, Achish has had enough of this kind of stuff, and he doesn't even want to hear about it. But the fact of the matter is that in the biblical story, it happened. This is David. This is the one who trusted God to take on this incredible task, this incredible man, Goliath, as well as the other armies of the Philistines and the enemies of Israel. You know, it's interesting. You can go back and you can see David's regression, how it actually happened, some of the things that he did. He forgot about the lion, the bear, and the giant. Isn't that interesting? You could do that. You know, he just forgot those things, the things he remembered when he took on Goliath. Lost and amazed of his current circumstances, he took matters into his own hands, and the results were tragic. He was trying to work it out by himself. He didn't even do that with Goliath. He used his talents, abilities, but he trusted in God. Dishonesty became a part of his plan. Through Jonathan, he lied to Saul about going to Bethlehem. Actually, you begin to see deception and lying taking place in order to cover his tracks, and you read about that in 1 Samuel 20. He feigned insanity, a pathetic low point in David's life. And this shows that I think that not one of us is exempt from allowing ourselves to get into a situation where we regress. Hopefully not to the point that this happened. But if it happened to David, it can happen to any one of us. And I think that's one of the lessons that's coming to us, one of the principles that's coming to us. I love Paul's example. And by God's grace, I would hope that each one of us could take our stand as Paul did, as he was facing death. And here was his testimony. We've read it before. But the Lord stood with me and strengthened me when he was forsaken by everyone. That's the context. He was forsaken by everyone. The Lord stood with me, strengthened me, so that the proclamation might be fully made through me and all the Gentiles might hear. So I was rescued from the lion's mouth. I was rescued from the lion's mouth. The Lord will rescue me from every evil work and will bring me safely into his heavenly kingdom. To him be the glory forever and ever. Amen. Even though I lose my life, I will not turn my back on God. I will not let fear take control of my life. And that was Paul's wonderful testimony and wonderful challenge and wonderful example. And so we have a reflection and response question. Why is it so easy to allow deception to become a part of our strategy when we try to solve problems in our own strength? Think about that. We've all experienced it, I think. I know I have. Number one, fear distorts our thinking. It certainly happened to David. Fear blurs our memories of what God did in the past. That happened to David. Fear naturally causes us to be self-protective and to take things into our own hands. I mean, these are just human tendencies. And we really have to be aware of that in our situations. That's why, by the way, we need other close relationships with fellow Christians, no matter what our position. David was ushered into an incredibly prominent place when he became the one who took on the giant and then became a leader in the armies of Israel, where the people were lauding him as the one who did battle against thousands. But here, coming out of that very successful environment, he deteriorates. He degenerates. Again, acknowledging, what would we do if we're in that case? I mean, a man was out to kill him. The king was out to kill him. But the fact is that God was the king. He was greater. And David lost sight of that. But he regained spiritual focus. You see that in the life of David.